That is what we are hearing from our Adrian Wojnarowski. But again, Steve Nash out as head coach of the Nets. Jacques Vaughn will be the acting head coach tonight against the Chicago Bulls. Again, so much drama in the offseason.
Before we get to any analysis at all whatsoever, earlier on, one of my favorite musicians passed away tragically, way too prematurely. Takeoff was 1/3 of Migos and was gunned down brutally in an incident where he shouldn't have had his life taken away from him. Before we get to the content, I just wanted to do a brief moment of silence for one of my favorite musicians that lost his life way too early. Now that we got all that out of the way, cue the intro. Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? If the Brooklyn Nets dealing with Kyrie Irving potentially opting out in the summer and then trying to force his way to the Los Angeles Lakers wasn't enough, if Kevin Durant demanding a trade once Kyrie Irving opted into his option wasn't enough, if the Brooklyn Nets 2-5 start to the season wasn't enough, or Kyrie Irving deciding to post anti-Semitic films onto his social media isn't enough, well, do I have a story for you? Because on top of this gigantic laundry list of controversies that the Brooklyn Nets have been involved in this young NBA season, it seems like they're making a significant change. And honestly, I am very happy for the individual that this is involving, because today we got some breaking news from none other than Adrian Wojnarowski. The Brooklyn Nets are firing head coach Steve Nash. Now, the reason why this is surprising is if you remember a couple months ago, Kevin Durant actually had a meeting with the Brooklyn Nets owner, Joe Tsai, and he requested for Steve Nash to be fired. Why was this so shocking to me? Because Kevin Durant was the reason why Steve Nash joined the Brooklyn Nets to begin with. Prior to Steve Nash, prior to even Kevin Durant stepping on the Brooklyn Nets floor for the first time, Kyrie Irving gave it a go with previous head coach Kenny Atkinson. And Kenny Atkinson deserves so much credit as one of the better NBA head coaches in the league. He's way too overqualified to be an assistant head coach. He took a team that had no assets at all, took flyers on players like D'Angelo Russell, developed players like Spencer Dinwiddie, Jarrett Allen, Karis LeVert, and that's just off the top of my head. Turned this team into a team with an identity and to a team that was competing for the Eastern Conference playoffs. Made D'Angelo Russell an all-star, and you can make an argument that he was the reason why D'Lo got the contract he got anyway. And once Kevin Durant returned from injury, him and Kyrie Irving decided Kenny Atkinson wasn't the man for the job. It was a man that Kevin Durant had familiarity with all the way back in Golden State when he was an assistant in Steve Nash. Now, the reason why Steve Nash was brought in was one, he had familiarity with Mike D'Antoni's fast-paced offenses, and he also was an assistant with the Golden State Warriors. But on top of that, in addition to being well-versed in those types of systems, he also is a multi-time MVP and an accomplished NBA star. So you would expect that Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant would respect him and his authority and his body of work when push came to shove. And ultimately, man, that's not what ended up happening, is it? You could point the blame finger at Steve Nash as much as you want, but throughout Steve Nash's tenure, he went from having a team of Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant with a very deep bench of players like Karis LeVert and Jarrett Allen and Spencer Dinwiddie, and I could go on and on about it, to trading those players for James Harden, to James Harden being fed up with the situation he was in and inevitably demanding a trade, to dealing with Kyrie Irving's vaccine drama last year, and most recently, we already know what Kyrie Irving posted onto Twitter the other day. And we have our own dedicated upload on this. This is strictly about basketball today. I'm just saying that that's a lot for an inexperienced head coach to deal with. But to be honest, I think he handled this situation with class. Woj says that the decision was mutual with Brooklyn and Steve Nash, and to be honest, I believe them. I think the Nets came up to him and say, hey, it's not working, and I think Nash may have said something along the lines of, hey, looks like these players, they're not responding to me, according to Sean Marks. So as a result, Steve Nash, put out this statement, and I'll tell you why I'm laughing at this statement in just a sec. A very heartfelt thanks to Joe and Claire at Psy, along with Sean Marks, for giving me the opportunity to coach the Brooklyn Nets. It was an amazing experience with many challenges that I'm incredibly grateful for. It was a pleasure to work with the players, performance team, and front office every day. I'm especially grateful to my coaching staff and video room, who are a talented group with so much character and professionalism. Lastly, thanks to Brooklyn and the passionate fans who support this team. Family first, and my family has found a home here and loves being a part of this beautiful community. I wish the Nets all the success in the world, and the Nashes will be rooting for our team as they turn this season around. Bro, I don't necessarily blame Steve Nash for not wanting to deal with this anymore. I mean, this was just so much drama, so many distractions that this man had to deal with, and this is considering the fact that he was literally just a little bit over 2 seasons into his career as a head coach. I mean, the best quote that epitomizes Steve Nash's tenure is when he was asked about Kyrie Irving posting an anti-Semitic film onto his Twitter page. He had this to say: "I don't think our group is overly affected by the situation. We've had so many situations over the last 2.5 years. I think we've kind of built an immunity to it." Look, man, I don't think I've ever seen a head coach having to deal with as much stuff as Steve Nash had to deal with. So part of me has tremendous amounts of empathy for him, and I honestly don't think he should be judged based upon his tenure with the Brooklyn Nets. That's my opinion. I know a lot of Nets fans think that Steve Nash and his rotations are the reason why the Nets are so horrible. That's just how I feel about it. And that's before I even brought in the fact that he had to deal with Ben Simmons being traded to the team last year and how he decided to recover and trying to integrate him successfully into the team, while Ben Simmons is literally terrified of getting fouled, which originally that was his best attribute, getting to the foul line and finishing strong at the rim, but all of a sudden he's too scared to get fouled, so now he's putting up single-digit points per game. I could go on and on about this, so you might be wondering, Mike, what are the Brooklyn Nets going to do about their head coach now? Well, according to Adrian Wojnarowski, former Orlando Magic head coach Jacques Vaughn is going to be the acting head coach tonight, but expect the Nets to inquire with suspended Celtics coach Ime Udoka, Quinn Snyder, among others. Boston will let Udoka leave for another job. Man, do you remember when Joe Tsai said culture over everything else? He literally tweeted that a few months ago. Man, this is a great culture that the Brooklyn Nets are currently building. I mean, look, I don't mean to consistently parody this team and patronize this team, but it's actually shocking to see how they're going about all of these unfortunate events, and they are literally contradicting themselves through it all. And it's really unfortunate because each and every year that they've had Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, I've said the same thing. This team can easily be a team that finishes top 3 in the East. The only team that could really defeat the Brooklyn Nets is the Brooklyn Nets. And for the last few years, we've been seeing it so much to the point where you literally saw James Harden say that I don't want to deal with this anymore and demand a trade. So you might be wondering, Mike, talk to us a little bit more about that Ime Udoka situation. So the Brooklyn Nets plan to hire Ime Udoka as their new head coach, sources tell The Stadium and The Athletic. Boston granted the Nets permission to speak to Udoka and will allow him to leave freely. So here's the thing, I'm getting multiple reports about this because on one hand, you're having Woj and Shams saying that, hey, Udoka's going to be the next guy. As you can see over here, literally Woj saying suspended Celtics coach Ime Udoka has emerged as the likely next Brooklyn Nets head coach, and his hiring could be finalized as soon as the next 24 to 48 hours, sources tell ESPN. The Celtics will let him leave for another job. The hope is that Udoka can tighten the Nets defensively and command the respect of the franchise's key players. Udoka spent a season on Steve Nash's staff before accepting the Celtics job and winning the Eastern Conference. With suspension, his future in Boston was essentially over. So it looks like the Brooklyn Nets are still looking for a head coach to do what they initially brought Steve Nash in to do. They want a guy that Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving can respect. A guy that Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving will actually listen to.
Does that not sound ridiculous to you guys?
I mean, could we take a step back for a second and think about this? They are looking for a guy that their diva superstars will listen to. That is just so bizarre to me, and it kind of makes sense why they would target Ime Udoka, because if you go to Quinn Snyder and show him the Brooklyn Nets, he might be a little terrified of the situation they got there. I mean, it seems like a volatile situation. Imagine if you're Quinn Snyder, you just left the Utah Jazz, now you go to the Brooklyn Nets and you just hope that Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving respect you. Ime Udoka is probably the best candidate, and that's kind kind of unfortunate given what he's going through behind the scenes. He's the best candidate because he's been on Steve Nash's coaching staff. He knows what he's getting himself into, which is why despite all the negative stuff going on about Ime Udoka, he's probably the best person for the job. This is despite him reportedly and allegedly sending inappropriate messages to women on the Celtics staff. I'm not here to drag the Brooklyn Nets for deciding to hire Ime Udoka. As a matter of fact, I get it. I just feel a lot of empathy for the Brooklyn Nets because you have to understand this team was literally on the up and up. They were really making moves to establish themselves as contenders. They took a risk that honestly any team would take by moving on from the core of D'Angelo Russell and Spencer Dinwiddie and Karis LeVert and Jarrett Allen, etc., and Kenny Atkinson. Anyone would have done that for Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. When KD and Kyrie said, hey, we want a coach we respect, they decided to bring in a coach that they thought Kevin Durant would respect because of former experience with him on the Golden State Warriors, and Kyrie Irving would respect because this is a multi-time MVP. When Kyrie Irving said that they needed more help, they went all in and traded for James Harden. They gave up multiple first-round picks to do that. Now Karis LeVert's gone, Jarrett Allen is gone, James Harden is gone, Steve Nash is gone, while Kyrie and KD are still there. Maybe this is the hire that saves the Brooklyn Nets. Maybe this is how they turn their season around. Maybe they need a head coach that has the experience and the pedigree that Ime Udoka has. He is a former player after all. He is the coach that swept them last year after all. The only reason I feel pessimistic about the situation is this is what the Brooklyn Nets were trying to achieve a few seasons ago when they fired Kenny Atkinson for Steve Nash. And Steve Nash clearly wasn't the man for the job. Is Ime Udoka the man for the job? Is he the right hire? Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Aside from that, I'm your boy Mike, and I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.